The title of our presentation is going to be The Little Time of Trouble. And for the most part, that's going to be the emphasis as to when it begins and how long does it last, what does it consist of, um, are we living in this time? We shall see through the presentation at this time. And so before we get into the Bible verses, I just have some charts I want to show you, some timelines, um, and just so that we have an idea of how this all comes together. Most of us, I believe, are familiar with what you see on the screen right now. Revelation 14, 6 through 13, the three angels' messages. When those messages begin to develop at the time of the end, according to the book of Daniel, the little book was open. And there we have the first and second angels' messages. Um, Notice that those two messages are based on time. After 1844, the Great Disappointment, uh, the message changes from a message based on time on a message based on events. Okay. Then we have in 1848, we have the beginning of what's called the sealing time. At that very same time, we will see that the little time of trouble begins. Okay. This message, the third angel's message as a whole, you can see here on the bottom, the judgment cry message intensifies. That was or is the purpose of the message, is to intensify, is to become a loud cry. Okay, and so let's move on to the other chart. Now, from this chart, we see that there is a little time of trouble B, part B. Okay. Uh, and just so you know, we're not gonna get into the finite details of everything I have. We have like 25 slides that we got to go through. And I was in a little bit of a rush to, just get this presentation together. And so hopefully that will be okay with you. If need be, we can have another presentation with more details. And so here we have on the chart 2001, the little time of trouble, part B. But this is based on Revelation 18, 1 through 6. And as you can see, the first and second and third angel's message is repeated. Okay, so after that little time of trouble, you can see judgments, and those judgments are mixed with mercy. Judgments mixed with mercy. And so just so that we're on the same page, what do I mean by judgments? Judgments in reference to uh, calamities, wars, bloodshed. These are judgments um, in reference to that little time of trouble. We'll see this in the presentation through the Bible verses and through the spirit of prophecy. And right down the center, we have what's called Jacob's time of trouble, or it could also be phrased as the time of trouble that has never been, a great time of trouble. This time is referenced also as the close of probation. At this time, you can see there's going to be 7 last plagues mixed without mercy. Okay, so on the other end, you can see that those judgments during the little time of trouble, those judgments are mixed with mercy. Over here, after probation closes, there is judgments without a mixture of mercy. Notice that the center has a question mark, and then at the very end of time, there's a question mark. I'm not placing any dates there. We're told not to. Time set. And we're not counting time because, as we had mentioned, after 1844, there is no more calculation of time. We are looking for events, and that's uh, what we're going to be looking at some of these events in the presentation today. Now, notice at the very bottom, before we get into our uh, Bible verses and quotes, anger of the nations intensifies. Okay, so that's what's going on throughout the time of which is called the little time of trouble, all the way down to the end of time. We'll see judgments intensified throughout that time, and we'll see this in scripture. So notice with me in Revelation chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. And after these things, I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, and the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And so what we see in these verses, figures being used. Um, First figure we see is that there are four uh, angels holding the four winds. So we're going to see this in scripture. What is this referring to? And then we also see that they are holding the winds so that they should not blow on the earth, nor the sea, nor on any tree. These are also figures. I believe the next verse is very clear, that it's to protect those that should be sealed, right? And this is referring to people that are being called by a message to become sealed. So that part of the verse is very clear from what I understand in the following verse, where it says in verse 3, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And so the sealing process is to begin. And this is why the winds are being held back until God's servants are sealed. Notice with me in Daniel chapter 7, verse 2 and 3, we're going to see what is represented by these winds. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And so it's we see similar language being used by Daniel, but the difference here is that the four winds are not being restrained. They're not being held back by the four angels here. They're actually blowing upon the earth or the sea. Notice verse 3. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. And so when we see these four beasts coming up out of the sea and there's winds blowing, well, this must represent the same thing that we see in Daniel chapter 2, where we see the four different metals upon that great image. This is something that we have all studied and learned in Adventism. in general, and I believe even Protestantism has unveiled some of these things through study. And so notice that the four winds are striving upon the great sea as these four beasts come up. Well, this must be the conquest, the wars between these different nations that are represented as beasts: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then Rome. One battles against the other, and that's how it conquers and begins to reign. And so those four winds do represent battles. They represent war, strife, agitation against nations, as we can see here in Daniel. Now notice with me, what about the waters or the sea? Most of us have read this verse and are very familiar. Revelation 17:15, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, and nations and tongues. And so this is a very populated area, and this is why we see the waters where the beasts are coming up, right? Now notice with me in Ezekiel. Ezekiel also talks about the events that are portrayed in Revelation chapter 7, but it gives us some more detail. And so let's notice, beginning at verse 17, and this is context to Ezekiel chapter 9, where we will see how this is fulfilled. Then he said unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose. And so notice here, the Lord has a controversy with the people, with the world, with his people, because this is the house of Judah, because they are filled with violence. They are not keeping the law. Notice verse 18, therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. And so, what type of fury or judgment is being represented here? This is the fury or the judgment mixed without mercy. Okay. So we can see the language here. Let's keep that in mind as we go forward. Ezekiel 9:1 and 9:2. He cried also in mine ears with a loud voice, saying, cause them that have charge over the city to draw near, even every man with his destroying weapon in his hand. And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth toward the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. And they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. So notice we're starting to get a picture of what is happening. There is a call to bring forth the men with the slaughter weapons, and there also is a man among them. There's 6, and one of them has the writer's inkhorn. Okay, we see there is somewhat of a connection here with the sanctuary because it makes reference to the brazen altar. The brazen altar, if we uh, remember, is actually in the outer court where the sacrifices would take place. Now notice, let's continue verses 3 and 4. And the glory of the Lord excuse me, and the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub, whereupon he was, to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed with linen, which had the writer's inkhorn by his side. And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Okay, and so the call here for the man with the writer's inkhorn is to go through and set a mark or a seal upon the men, women, and children that sigh and cry. That sigh and cry for what? For all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. They're sighing and crying for the different injustices, the unrighteousness, the law breaking that is taking place around them. Okay, so this is the work that we ought to be doing throughout this time. Notice, continues to say in Ezekiel 9, 5, and 6, and to the others he said, In mine hearing, go ye after him. Now notice that word after him. Okay, so first the man with the writer's inkhorn is to go forth and set the mark. These other 5 men are not to continue or not to go forth until that man with the writer's inkhorn is done. Okay, so there is a time set for the sealing, and then there is a time for the destruction that is to come upon those that did not receive the seal or the mark. It says, Go ye after him through the city and smite, let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity. Again, now we're starting to see again that these men that go forth after the sealing is done to destroy or to use those slaughter weapons upon those that don't have. What kind of judgment is represented here? It is the uh, without mixture of mercy. Ezekiel 9:6, slay utterly, old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near. Now notice this, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. So where does he begin? He begins with those of the house of God, just like Peter says. That's where judgment begins. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house. The leaders are the first to receive that judgment. Now, let us continue. So before I go to the next slide, remember it mentioned, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, correct? Now notice with me in Revelation chapter 9, verse 4. And it was commanded them. Now, if you've studied Revelation chapter 9, you know it refers to a symbol called locust. And these are the Saracen and Turkish hordes that God used to bring judgment upon idolatry. Okay. And here we see, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, similar to what we read in Revelation chapter 7, correct? Now notice this latter part. Neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And so the judgment that is being pronounced here upon those that do not have the seal of God, it was a judgment mixed with mercy, because it is to hurt, right? Not to destroy. And so notice now we're going to talk about how or when the sealing message began. This is history, Adventist history. Notice the Sabbath and sanctuary conferences and the proclamation of the sealing. This is taken from Bates. Before Me Lies, a book published by Joseph Bates in January 1849, entitled A Seal of the Living God. In the book is an account of a vision given to Miss White in the home of Otis Nichols, Dorchester, Massachusetts, on the evening of November 18, 1848. At that time, there was a condition of war, rioting, and confusion which began on the 22nd of February of that year in that city of Paris, France, and had spread to over 30 of the principalities, states, and governments of Europe. As we shall see, it was the time of the conflict of the nations of Europe in the early months of 1848 that light came to the people respecting the sealing message. In a brief consideration of that conflict, its cause and development, we shall see how the light on the message was obtained. In the Library of Universal Knowledge, page 536, we read of that conflict in 1848. That revolution was caused by the French people demanding a republican form of government from under Louis Philippe, and for a time there was republican form. The revolution contagion, spreading temporarily all over lost of the continent of Europe. At that time, the few who had begun to observe the seventh-day Sabbath had just discovered from the seventh chapter of the book of Revelation a sealing message, which must go forth to prepare a people to stand, notice this, in the great day of the Lord. These few said, the last great battle cannot come yet, for here is a sealing word to prepare a people to stand in the great day. Mr. and Miss White and Mr. Bates were the three public laborers who were then teaching the Sabbath truth and the sealing message. They, with the few who had already accepted the message, were among the very poor of the world. And so notice 1848 was that time when the proclamation of this message begins. The sealing message, Revelation chapter 7, had begun to be proclaimed. Notice it continues on this evening already mentioned. These laborers and other brethren met at Otis Nichols' home to pray the Lord to guide them in publishing the sealing message to the world. As they prayed, Miss White was taken off in vision. While in vision, she said of the Sabbath, truth, it is the seal. That truth arises and is on the increase, stronger and stronger. It is coming up. It arises commencing from the rising of the sun, like the sun at first cold. It grows warmer and sends its rays. The angels are holding the four winds. It is God that restrains the powers. The angels have not let go, for the saints are not all sealed. When Michael stands up, this trouble will be all over the earth. They, the winds of war, etc., are just ready to blow. There is a check put on because the saints are not sealed. Yea, publish the things thou hast seen and heard, and the blessing of God will attend. Okay, and so as we can see here, the fulfillment of Revelation chapter 7 is clearly described. Those winds are, as we have seen in the Bible, are wars, strife, bloodshed. Um, and so let's continue. At that time, that vision was given. It did really look as if the nations of the world would soon be in a whirlwind of war. Of the situation, United States Senator Coate said it has seemed to me as if the prerogatives of crowns and the rights of men and the hoarded up resentments of 1,000 years were about to unsheathe the sword for a conflict in which blood shall flow, as in a apocalyptic vision, to the bridles of the horses. In a few months, the nations were all quiet again, but this change came on so unexpectedly that Horace Greeley, in speaking of it in the New York Tribune, said it was a great wonder to politicians what started all that turmoil of the nations, but a greater wonder still what stopped it all so suddenly. And isn't this so, as we have seen even in recent days? Wars, conflicts just popping off out of nowhere and then also dying down. Uh, we see these types of things even in our day. Notice I saw, this is speaking of one of the early pioneers, Elvira Hastings. I saw that she was sealed and would come up at the voice of God and stand upon the earth, and would be with the 144,000. I saw we need not mourn for her. She would rest in the time of trouble. Okay, so notice uh, this pioneer, Lyra Hastings, uh, passed away, and it says of her rest uh, that she would be resting in the time of trouble. This is either the time when the plagues fall, or it is a time before the plagues fall. And we will see the difference here in a moment. And I'll continue to read. And it says, and all that we could mourn for was our loss in being deprived of her company. I saw her death would result in good. The angel from the east having the seal of the living God. This is actually something she wrote. Okay. This is from Elvira Hastings. The angel from the east having the seal of the living God, and the man clothed in linen spoken of in Ezekiel having a writer's inkhorn by his side are one and the same thing. They have already gone forth to set a mark or a seal upon all them that sigh and cry for the abominations done in the land. Please read this whole vision. Ezekiel 9, 1 through 11. See the slaughtering men right behind, whose eyes are not to spare men, women, nor children. Here is just where we are in time's history. The work is fast closing up. And here I would remark that Sister Ellen White saw in vision last June 5 angels with rolls in their hands. She asked her accompanying angel what they meant. He told her she would know hereafter. In September, she saw them with their rolls open, and they were writing names, while at the same time they were anxiously looking down, watching the words and actions of those who were candidates for the seal. Now, notice the dates as well. This is August 1850. I forgot to show you here in this quote, 1850. And so in this very year she is sealed. Okay, because the sealing had begun in 1848, and so she was sealed. And we can see by the things that she writes that she believed that message. Notice Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. And the nations were angry. Okay. And thy wrath is come. Here are the seven last plagues, and the time of the dead that they should be judged. This is the judgment of the wicked during the millennium, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth, and that would be the execution of the judgment after the millennium. Notice the angry nations at that time. While the work of salvation is closing, trouble will be coming on the earth, and the nations will be angry, yet held in check, so as not to prevent the work of the third angel. And so during that time, the little time of trouble, we do see judgments upon the land. We do see strife. We see turmoil. Uh, but these things are held in check so that the third angel can continue its work in doing that sealing process, that sealing work. Okay, so let's notice these three quotes. First one, early writings. I saw that God had children who do not see and keep the Sabbath. They have not rejected the light upon it. And at the commencement of the time of trouble, we were filled with the Holy Ghost as we went forth and proclaimed the Sabbath more fully. Okay, and so we know from history that our pioneers, although they were mighty and giving the three angels messages, they were not able to complete that work. And we see that here, uh, another time of trouble is to uh, come. And at that time, it says we were filled with the Holy Ghost and went forth and finished the work. That is what the third angel is called to do. Under the sealing message. Notice early writings, page 85, the commencement of that time of trouble here mentioned does not refer to the time when the plague shall begin to be poured out, but to a short period just before they are poured out, while Christ is in the sanctuary. So, in other words, before Christ or before probation closes, Christ is still in the sanctuary. Once probation closes, Christ is coming out or out of the sanctuary and is on his way to um, uh, to deliver his people. Notice it's the time of trouble. It's on the increase and will increase more and more. The trouble will never end until the earth is rid of the wicked. Okay, and so that's the purpose of the judgments that we see here. Uh, it is to increase all the way until the close of probation, and that is where it climaxes. It's mixed without mercy. Now notice this verse, Isaiah 26, or these verses, 26 verses 7 through 9. What is the Lord doing throughout the time or that little time of trouble? We see it here in these verses. The way of the just is uprightness. Thou most upright dost weigh the path of the just. Yea, in the way of thy judgments, O Lord, have we waited for thee. Isn't that what we are doing? We are waiting for the Lord to come. The desire of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. With my soul have I desired thee in the night. Yea, with my spirit within me will I seek thee early, for when thy judgments are in the earth. Okay, so those judgments that we made reference to under that little time of trouble. Notice what God is doing. The inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness, because during this time is when God is pouring out his spirit upon his people, and his people begin to give the three angels messages again, because they know that these judgments are the sign to let us know where we are in Earth's history. And so this is going to be the last slide. Remember, we saw this slide at the very beginning. This is the little time of trouble on part B. Notice that the judgments mixed with mercy. This is where those judgments are restrained. We see God's angels holding the winds back, uh, so as to not stop the message from going forth. Revelation chapter 7, as we saw, is during that time period. Revelation chapter 9, Ezekiel 9, Revelation chapter 11, 18, and then Isaiah 26, verses 7 through 9. And then we have the close of probation, and the sign to know where we are in reference to the close of probation is Daniel 11, verse 45. Uh, we know that deals with the king of the north, that's the Turk, when he makes his way into Jerusalem. Uh, that is the sign for God's people to know that probation is about to close. Revelation chapter 22, verse 11, that is the verse that lets us know that probation has closed. He that is just, let him to continue. And he's that is filthy, let him be filthy still. Then we have these two verses, and there's more, I'm sure, that we can find, but like I said, I was kind of wanting to fill complete my study before my time ended. So Ezekiel 9 also refers to that the men with the slaughtering weapons. And so after the sealing, we see those men are to slay and not have pity, mixed without mercy. Revelation 14:10, the third angel warns people to not receive the mark of the beast, or they will receive that judgment. These are the things that we ought to be warning people to not receive the mark of the beast, else the seven last plagues and eternal ruin is the judgment.